So this is the first virtual Atlantic Regional Council, but we were not the first within our union to do this. The Prairie region had the honors of being the first region to have it virtually, and we thank them for being the guinea pigs. Seriously, it was a great council, and hats off to all involved. We've heard words like unprecedented, challenging to describe the last 15 months, and it doesn't quite capture what you've all been going through. One word to describe all of you is resilient, because no matter what you were faced with over the last year, all of you fought for your members in your workplaces and in your communities. Our members who work at the Dominion stores across the entire province of Newfoundland, Labrador, unequivocally proved just that. 1,400 of our members took on billionaire Galen Weston to try to achieve a fair collective agreement. Although they did not gain everything they wanted in their agreement, they showed solidarity, not only amongst themselves, but indeed across the country, putting a spotlight on the inequities of the extremely profitable company and working people. The support shown by Unifor members across the entire country via financially and through their activism were off the charts. Unifor members showed support in Ajax, Ontario by shutting down a major Loblaws warehouse that supplies within Ontario. Also within the Atlantic, Unifor members came together in Moncton, New Brunswick to shut down a Loblaws warehouse to support our members in Newfoundland. This was all during a time when we had an Atlantic bubble, which was unfortunately burst since that time. We've all seen how quickly things can change during this pandemic. We went from an Atlantic bubble to closing borders. No better case in point was the Newfoundland and Labrador election. When Premier Furey called the election, the positive case numbers were low, but then the arse fell out of her. It was the longest election in the province's history. The campaign spanned over 10 weeks. Did that stop our activists? Not a chance. Due to COVID, it may have looked a little different, but Unifor was reaching out to locals and membership to ensure that they voted. That being said, amongst all citizens, the voter turnout was only 48%. Many attributed this to the change of the strictly mail-in ballot vote. I want to thank Darlene Perot from Local 597, Lori Lynn Earl, and Lisa Lehman, both from Local 410, for all their hard work during the election. We are fortunate to have Lisa on our Political Action Standing Committee. Premier Andrew Furey narrowly secured his majority government. And I know that the people of Newfoundland and Labrador are bracing themselves for what's to come. His government released a report the end of May, the end of May. And obviously, Furey has every intention of acting on the recommendation from the Moya Green report. The report called Big Reset is full of austerity recommendations from the Premier's Economic Recovery Team, PERT for short. It was headed by Dame Moya Green, wealthy, titled and entitled, and best known for privatizing Britain's Royal Mail service here and in Canada for working on privatizing CN Rail and deregulate the Canadian airline industry. There is not a union in Newfoundland and Labrador that is not extremely concerned about what it's going to do to their province. The Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Labor, under the strong leadership of Mary Shortall, has hosted numerous meetings since the report was released. Unifor and Unifor FFAW are participating in those meetings. Lisa Lehman will not only be contacting Unifor members to request they reach out to their MHAs, she'll be coordinating and organizing with all unions to ensure correct information reaches the politicians. This report may not only impact your workplace, it will affect the social network of many communities. particularly rural communities, impacting schools and healthcare, for example. The report lacked vision and obviously flies in the face of building back better. And rest assured, we will fight to prevent its slash and burn austerity recommendations from ever becoming reality. The pandemic certainly hit some of our sectors of our union harder than others, like aviation and airlines. In January, Matt Boyce and I participated in lobbying MPs across the Atlantic, stressing the importance of the sector and that help was needed. Local 2002 members across all the Atlantic provinces, and in fact the entire country, felt the impact through layoffs. A rally was held in Halifax in November of last year. Unifor, along with other unions in this sector, called on federal government to provide support for the aerospace and airline sector. And of course, the workers, which Martin Melanson from Local 2002 spoke passionately about. Unifor Local 7378, which represents Sunwing pilots, also presented at the rally. The story told by Michelle Tesson, a pilot from Sunwing, certainly left an impression. Not only maintaining her flying hours, but jeopardized her occupation, but also impacted her life away from work due to being laid off. And after months and months of negotiations between the federal government and the airlines, an agreement was reached. Shortly after that, some, not all, of our members received their recall notice. However, the devastation throughout the sector is still creating havoc, and rest assured, your union will continue advocating on your behalf. Local 2121, our offshore members in Newfoundland and Labrador, is another example. September of last year, the local organized a rally in support of their sector, and hundreds attended in solidarity. The local executive has been working tirelessly on behalf of their members. The local president of 2121, Dave Mercer, has had many meetings with government, provincially and federally, pushing the agenda of the importance of their industry and their members' prosperity. Dave, along with Scott Doherty, Jerry, and others, have been relentless in the pursuit to achieve the best possible outcome regarding the Terra Nova, which now has hundreds of members on layoff. Although this is still an ongoing issue, it hasn't stopped the pursuit of strong health and safety regulations. Dave and Scott have been making presentations to Senate to ensure this doesn't take another 8 years to settle legislation for strong health and safety provisions for this sector. Health and safety is a priority in every workplace. And I think health and safety committees would agree, if anything else, this pandemic has highlighted just that. Our members from Local 1944 that were on the Atlantic Destiny, a vessel that caught fire and sank, can attest to the importance of health and safety measures in the workplace. We will hear more about their horrific ordeal during our health and safety panel before lunch. Our members at the Northwood Halifax campus in Nova Scotia have definitely seen the importance of having a strong voice when it comes to the safety of our members. Unfortunately, this long-term care facility was the hardest hit in Nova Scotia, if not the entire Atlantic, when they had an outbreak during the first wave of the pandemic. We had 81 of our members testing positive for COVID-19, with one of them ending up in ICU, but thankfully recovered. However, 246 residents tested positive and 53 residents died. The strain our members suffered during that time was unfathomable, but yet they went into work day in, day out, because they knew the residents relied on them. Your dedication was not only noticed by your union, but by the employer, the residents' families, and the public. I want to say thank you to all those who work in healthcare for your dedication and your heart. Historically in Nova Scotia, acute care was always the first at the bargaining table. And when an agreement was reached in long-term care, long-term care followed. But that is not the case this round. Northwood, which is our longest long-term care facility in Nova Scotia, with over 500 members, is currently in bargaining, and our acute care sector is at a separate table with the Council of Unions and the Health Authority. I believe this pandemic has showed us throughout the country that government undervalued workers in long-term care. Well, the bargaining committee at Northwood is hoping to change that, and your union is here to support you. Perhaps with a new premier at the helm in Nova Scotia, you will get the respect you deserve. I have to say, I personally was not disappointed when Stephen Mcneil stepped down as premier of Nova Scotia due to his incessant attacks on workers and unions through legislation throughout his reign. However, it wasn't just through legislation that he showed his disdain for workers. It was through his decisions while premier. He made, like the one decision he made with respect to our members at Northern Pulp. He refused to explore a solution for all parties because it was easier to shut down a mill, which was a major economic contributor to the province, than it was to implement solutions that would have protected jobs, protected the work, the environment, and also respected First Nations. Let's hope the new Premier, Ian Rankin, has the vision that Mcneil lacked. Northern Pulp has not given up and has shown their commitment to our members by their ongoing pursuit of finding a solution. So far, Premier Rankin is showing us that there is some hope. Shortly after he was elected leader of the Liberal Party, therefore becoming Premier, a new office was created, the Office of Equity and Anti-Racism Initiatives. April of this year, Nova Scotia has established a community-based working group to support the collection of data, of race-based data in the health system. All Atlantic premiers received a letter from me urging them to do this, to collect this valuable data. Also, in discussions with the Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development, Minister Derek Mumbercat committed to action following the latest federal budget, where there will be a significant injection of federal funding to build a comprehensive system of early learning and childcare for Canada. Minister Mumbercat's commitment appeared sincere, and perhaps Nova Scotia will be the first province out of the gate following the federal announcement. Time will tell, because actions speak louder than words. The implementation of this announcement is great news for families, but also for our early childhood educators that we represent. The obvious goal is to have all provinces negotiate bilateral agreements and cooperate with federal government in building a high quality, affordable, and inclusive early learning and childcare system. As a union, we've been through a lot over the past year, but with the pandemic. But in Nova Scotia, we had more tragedy than most. We unfortunately are known to have the largest mass shooting in Canada, not a title any of us wanted. In April of 2020, a horrific act of violence started in a small community in Portapique, where 22 people lost their lives. Out of this tragedy, a nonprofit organization was formed called Nova Scotia Remembers Legacy Society. During a national executive board meeting, the Ontario Regional Council, the Prairie Regional Council, the BC Regional Council, Quebec Regional Council, along with national, and of course, the Atlantic Regional Council donated $17,500 to the organization. One of our local presidents, Lavonna Staples, from Local 4619 is part of the board for that organization. And Matt Loyce proudly presented Lavana with the check, and you will hear from Lavana tomorrow morning. Many of our Unifor members step up to lead, whether it's part of a nonprofit organization or whether it's in a municipal, provincial, or federal election. During the pandemic, our first provincial election was in New Brunswick, where Unifor activists participated in ensuring our members got out to vote. Elections can be complicated with various platforms, but that does not stop us from playing an active role. Adam Costain, who is on our Political Action Standing Committee, played an integral role, as well as Mike McMullen, the Atlantic Area Director. I want to thank them both and thank all those who are involved. Next up will be Nova Scotia, and Jennifer Benoit from Local 2107 will be good and ready when that comes. We all know that government plays a huge role in our workplaces, whether it involves funding, passing legislation, affecting our bargaining power, or not acting when it comes to the health and safety of our members. Local 219 knows this all too well. Local President Brady Moore and the Health and Safety Committee have been pressuring the company and government to follow health and safety procedures in their workplace, which is A.V. Nakawik Mill in New Brunswick. They have several examples of how the right to refuse unsafe work is not only important during a pandemic, but important every day for workers. The local will be part of the health and safety panel later today, and I hope it will inspire current and new health and safety activists throughout the Atlantic. It's been especially challenging for health and safety activists for locals that cover more than one province. Bay ferries, for example, ferry service between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, Northumberland ferry service between Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia, and Marine Atlantic that provides service between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. These are examples of where we have members in each province they service. They must be up to date on the various public health restrictions for each province. We also have our Bell locals that are in all 4 Atlantic provinces. And even though they don't travel between provinces, different applications to the public health orders had to be adhered to. And we wish them all the best in their upcoming bargaining, which I'm sure will be challenging. Local 1 MWF at the Halifax Shipyard is another example of a local that took swift action in protecting their members when outside sources would come into their workplace. If they felt it was unsafe for their members, the local did not hesitate to lead and protect their members. These were just a few examples of the strength of our union and of all our locals. There are far too many to list, but what I know is that each and every one of you made a difference for your members, so thank you. Your union has not stopped during the pandemic. The health and safety, legal, pension, benefits, human rights, political action, women's, education, organizing, communications, and the research department, I would argue, have been busier than ever. I hope all of you were able to use a tremendous amount of material that our union provided on our website. I'm not tech savvy, as you all know, but when it comes to our communication, what I know when our communications director, Nally, tells us the amount of views that our materials created, I was astonished and extremely proud. The number of campaigns that have taken place through the pandemic clearly shows it did not stop your union from being active one little bit. If anything, it ramped up due to me. Jerry Diaz, your national president, has been nonstop doing interviews with media, presenting to cabinet ministers, lobbying federal and provincial politicians on your behalf. I would argue positive changes for workers would not have happened if it wasn't for the relentless pressure from your union. Campaigns like personal protective equipment, building back better, anti-scab legislation, paid sick leave, paid vaccination time, and so many more could not and cannot happen without your support. Because of all of you, that's what makes the strength of our union. We also build our strength through organizing. Since the last time we met, the organizing department has been quite busy. In the Atlantic, we have organized 4 new groups, which equates to roughly 400 members. Let's all welcome Chalut Samuel in Belgium, New Brunswick, Bragg Communications in Nova Scotia, Cannibal Medical Corporation in Newfoundland and Labrador, which, by the way, is the first cannabis-related group in Canada to organize. Loblaws Warehouse in Moncton, and now Unifor represents all Loblaws warehouses in Moncton. So great job, Patrick, and the whole organizing department. And I want to congratulate the organizing team for their outstanding work they have done with WestJet. Unifor now represents over 500 workers at WestJet in Edmonton and Calgary. Organizing can still happen during a pandemic, and the organizing department has shown us new, innovative ways to do just that. As hard as we may try, there are times when the pandemic was the victor, like we've seen in Boise-Joyce in New Brunswick. Luc Belanger lost his life due to COVID-19 on April 16th, and our whole Unifor family felt the pain. Au nom de tous les syndicats, et en particulier de nos amis Unifor de la nous offrons nos condoléances à la famille de et à sa famille syndicale. Cette coupe tragique ne se passe pas bien, mais elle nous rappellera pourquoi nous nous portons pour la protection de travailleuses et travailleurs pendant et après la pandémie. We have also had tragic Unifor losses within our Atlantic Unifor FFAW family. They have had a devastating loss of 8 members since our last ARC. Unifor paid tribute to those who have died through our National Day of Mourning held on April 28th. Although FFAW has had some tragic losses, it hasn't stopped them from fighting on behalf of their members. FFAW has sent over 2,000 letters to MPs to support the inshore fishery, which led to the Fish Harvester Grant and Benefit, a program that guaranteed over $470 million in direct support to harvesters across the country. They pushed for the extension of P.E.I. benefits for their membership. They had historic wins in fish price negotiations that will support coastal communities. 2021 may be the highest value ever for the fishery in Newfoundland and Labrador, a remarkable recovery during COVID-19. They also launched a campaign to address corporate concentration of Newfoundland fish processing sector that decreased competition and lowers prices to fish harvesters. And after over a decade of advocacy and lobbying with the national counterparts, regulations came into force to protect owner-operator fishery, FFAW members, from controlling agreements where fish processing companies take control of licenses and the value of our fisheries. Amazing work, FFAW, and we know the members are in great hands with all your efforts and advocacy. To the national staff reps, local leadership, and members, thank you for all the work you have been doing, especially throughout the pandemic. Our union is lucky to have you. I want to mention Unifor was fortunate to have Susan Taylor for many years as a national staff rep, but retired last year. And we wish her all the best with her retirement.